My first argument is that our universe has a beginning. Anything that has a beginning has a cause to it. If I point to a building and I say that nothing created this, you will look at me like I'm silly. The same thing were to be is if a waiter at a restaurant comes to me with the dish I ordered, and I say, "Wow, what a wonderful dish. Crazy how all the molecules just align themselves to make a dish for me." So, according to an atheist and according to evolutionists, our universe began around 13.8 billion years ago, where something called the Big Bang happened. The Big Bang, according to NASA, is where all matter was created. Now, for something to be created, it must have a creator. So, according to NASA, the Big Bang would be our creator, or our God. Well, what do you mean, God? The Big Bang isn't a God. It's not all powerful. It's not all knowing. It's not all loving. The definition for God is simply creator. And a creator is something or someone that creates. Well, what about humans who create things? Does that make them gods? No. I argue that humans actually form things with what has already been created. Because I'm sure a lot of us have learned in school that matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So humans simply aren't creating matter. We're using pre-existing matter to form different things. Now, if you were to argue that the universe is eternal, then I would say, how come our observable universe is constantly expanding? What many atheists fail to understand is that the Big Bang Theory does not combat theism. Rather, it combats atheism. Because if the universe is eternal, it means there has been no creator. But if the universe has a beginning, it argues that the universe does have a creator, because obviously we know that matter can't be created nor destroyed, and nothing can't create everything. That is illogical. So if you truly still believe that our universe is eternal, why is the universe expanding? At what point did the universe begin expanding? That point, according to Big Bang theorists, is the singularity, where our universe started at a singular point and has been expanding ever since. And again, something had to cause this. Something had to have created our universe, because nothing cannot create everything. My second argument is that life cannot come from non-life. Never in the existence of our history have we ever observed non-life bearing life. Life had to begin at some point. According to evolutionists, we have a common ancestor. This common ancestor is not apes. Contrary to that graph you might see online, we do not evolve from apes, even according to evolutionists. Rather, an evolutionist believes in the idea of something called the primordial soup. What the heck is a primordial soup? Basically, over billions of years after the Big Bang, there were particles that rained down onto Earth and created this big, huge organic soup kind of thing. And within this soup came life, and that life being one singular-celled bacterial organism. And from that organism, it later divided some more, went into the water, became fish, those fish grew legs, came out of the water, and now we have humans and every other living animal, and everything else that's living. Seems a little far-fetched to me. Why is it far-fetched? Well, number one, we have never ever observed a single-cell bacterial organism spontaneously coming into existence before. Number two, a single-cell bacterial organism is a prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotes do not include any type of nucleus or nuclei. Humans are made up of eukaryotic cells, and these eukaryotic cells include nuclei. So never once again in our observable history have we observed a prokaryotic cell becoming a eukaryotic cell. Many people also believe in the idea that abiogenesis, which is a process of the formulation of the building blocks of life, the building blocks being things such as nucleotides and amino acids. People believe that this could explain the idea of how life can arise from non-life. If we're able to create the building blocks of life, doesn't that mean we ought to have life spontaneously arise out of nothing? Well, not really, because we're still kind of missing a factor. We have the building blocks, but we're missing life. I think I have the answer. I think I know what's missing. Life is missing. Life cannot come from non-life. Only life bears life, which I believe can only come from God. God, bearing life, gave everything and everyone life. And if you believe that life has always existed for an infinite amount of time, I would tell you to argue with the second law of thermodynamics that tells us that our universe is actually running out of usable energy. So if life has infinitely existed, we would have run out of energy an infinite amount of time ago. My next argument is the fine-tuning argument. Basically, our world is so perfect that it is exactly what humans need to survive and to thrive. Well, of course, natural selection. Humans have evolved to be able to withstand the environment. Alright, calm down there. We'll get to that later in the video. If gravity was slightly stronger, everything would collapse. If gravity were slightly weaker, everything would disperse. Everything is so fine-tuned that it's a little suspicious. Did you know that your own DNA contains over 3 billion letters of code on them? And that each and every one of your cells has a complete copy of that code. Every single cell. Your brain has around 86 billion neurons and are each connected to thousands of others, which is more than we have stars in the Milky Way galaxy. The human eye can distinguish around 10 million different colors. Your heart pumps out 2,000 gallons of blood through 60,000 miles of blood vessels. And get this, your own body can take a threat, identify it, and attack it without you even knowing. Your body is constantly fighting off tens of thousands up to millions of threats every single day. Everything is too good to be true. My next argument is the idea of consciousness. If evolution is true, if there is no God breathing life into everything, where does consciousness come from? If all life comes from this single-cell bacterial organism, is all bacteria conscious? When did that life become conscious? And what gives something consciousness? Just like life coming from non-life, we have never observed consciousness coming from an unconscious being. My next argument is that immaterial things exist. As an atheist, if you are consistent, you must agree that the immaterial ought not to exist, because just like life coming from life, immaterial things must come from immaterial things. Most atheists would argue that morality is subjective, because if somebody were to say murder is right and another person were to say murder is wrong, how are we supposed to know who is correct? There is no objective authority outside of their opinion, because the only objective authority would be God in this case. And an atheist might think they're being consistent with their worldview by saying that, but I like to twist the script a little. Even with a subjective opinion on morality, they are still inconsistent with their worldview, because morality is immaterial. For me to say that rape is wrong, which I hope everyone agrees with, has absolutely nothing to do with the materialistic part of me. It's the same with consciousness. Consciousness has nothing to do with the materialistic part of you. Consciousness is simply the awareness of what's going on around you and the ability to respond to that. Now, if your argument for all of these things are, well, it's chemical reactions going on in the brain, and that we have no control over these chemical reactions, then I will tell you, be more consistent with your worldview. As an atheist, if you say morality is subjective and these moral preferences are simply chemical reactions going on in my brain, then you cannot say that we ought to punish criminals. Well, of course I can say we can punish criminals. I don't want people going around murdering everybody. If you're an atheist, you can't say that while being consistent with your worldview. Because if one atheist says to the other, I think you should be punished for murdering everybody, the other atheist can say, well, I think it's correct to murder people, and I did it. And this is all because of chemical reactions going on in my brain. You can't tell me whether I'm right or wrong, because there's nothing outside of us to tell us who is right and wrong, which would ultimately allude me to my next argument that free agency or free will cannot exist without a God. Because again, if these are all chemical reactions going on in your brain, who is to say that we have control over these chemical reactions? In order for us to have free will or free agency, there must be a willer or an agent behind these decisions. So atheists, what part of your body is making these decisions? Is it you making these decisions? Or is it your body part making these decisions? If an atheist says, well, it's my brain making these decisions, I say, okay, are you your brain? And if they want to go as far to say, yes, I am my brain, I would tell that atheist, okay, be consistent. If we both point at a human brain outside of a body, are you really going to tell me that that's a person? And again, if this hypothetical person were to say that yes, this still is a person, I would say, what if I take just one single brain cell? Is that single brain cell a person? Or does it have to be multiple brain cells? Basically, if you really do hold this position, it is way too ambiguous. And now my final and most important point, and my favorite argument against atheism, is the uniformity in our nature. What do I mean by this? I mean that our nature is consistently the same. Not just our human nature, but I'm referring to all nature. Nature as in our materialistic world. Gravity, thermodynamics, molecules, atoms, everything you can think of that has something to do with science is consistent in its properties. So if an atheist ever says, well, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. Science is based on the uniformity in our nature. Essentially, it's based on induction. Induction is the idea that the future will be like the past. But because nature is so uniform, we can infer that the future will be like the past. But my question is, why? Why will gravity exist tomorrow? If there is no God, the chances of gravity existing, the same strength that exists right now, is the same probability of it existing at any other strength. It's also the same probability as gravity ceasing to exist. You might say, whoa, well, that's silly, come on. Gravity's always existed, that's just the way it is. I agree, that is the way it always is. But the difference is, a theist has a justifier for why that is. My justification for the uniformity in our nature is that a deity is keeping our nature uniform, orchestrating the properties of electrons, molecules, atoms, anything related to the materialistic world is being kept in order by a deity. If atheism's true, then everything that exists is the outcome of random events happening over millions and millions of years with different atoms colliding, chemical reactions, and it's all at random. So if everything is happening at random, it is all based on probability. It's based on chance. And remember, probability has no memory. Let me try and give you an example to understand this. If for the past 1,000 days of my life, every single day, you told me to choose a number between 1 and 1 million, and for every single day, I chose the number 20, and I asked you, what number do you think I am going to choose tomorrow? What would your answer be? Well, if you said 20, my question is, why? Why are you so confident I'm going to choose 20 again? Considering the odds of me choosing the number 20 are 1 in a million. When I said probability has no memory, the chances, or the probability of me choosing any other number is just as likely as me choosing the number 20. The fact that I chose 20 for the million days before that has absolutely nothing to do with me choosing 20 today. But that aligns with your personality and what you've always been choosing. Of course your past decisions have something to do with your future decisions. Uh-oh, guess what you just did? If you agreed with me there, you agreed that we have a God. Whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean I agreed we have a God? Come on, that's a big jump there. Take it like this. You are making the inference that by my past decisions, my future decision will be like my past decisions. In a universe without a God, there is no decision making. The idea that the future will be like the past is simply basing it off of whoever makes that decision. The person making that decision is God. A universe without a God is equivalent to having a random number generator choose how the properties of our physical world will work. So atheists, why do you have so much faith that the laws of gravity will exist how they've always existed when everything is by random chance? How can you come to scientific conclusions when all you're doing is basing the future on the past? How are you to say that the future will be like the past? How are you even to know that 13.8 billion years ago, the properties of molecules and atoms work the same as today? How are you so quick to assume that the laws of thermodynamics will exist? If the laws in nature exist, were these laws discovered? If the law was created by humans, how can we bet that the law of thermodynamics is suitable for us to base different scientific calculations on if we don't know that this law will remain constant? And if the law was discovered, then who created this law? If a law was prescribed, there ought to be a lawgiver, that being God. And my final sort of half point is that if there is no God, there is no meaning of life. And I can guarantee you that almost every single atheist lives their life contrary to that fact. So I'll leave off the video with this. An atheist might tell you, I do not have enough faith to believe in God. Well, I say to you, I do not have enough faith to be an atheist.